All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Sheffy's Sandbox. And I don't know about you, but January has felt a little challenging. And in my case, nothing huge wrong, just a bunch of little stuff. Just adds up. But I hope this podcast is one of the highlights in your day. And if it is, then I would love to hear about it. When I have days like today where editing the podcast with Mercury retrograde has been so difficult. Everything going on in the house is like keeping me distracted. In spite of all that, if I were to hear from you that it's helping or you find it entertaining, or maybe hearing about my life makes you feel better about your own, I'm good with that too. Just drop me a line and let me know that you're listening. So I would also be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to tell you about my new Patreon page. I think I have set my goal pretty reasonably. For the entire year, I have the goal as being $200 and something just to cover the cost of my website and my email address. And I offer two levels of support: the pom-poms, which are $5 a month, and the thunder, which is $10 a month. So I am already at, I think, 20% of my goal for the month. So if you want to and you feel called to do it, go over to patreon.com/Aprilific. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode today. It's kind of lengthy, but not any more so than usual, I guess. So I would encourage you to check out the links in the show notes. Throughout the podcast coming up, I'll reference like an NPR podcast. It's called This American Life. And I have the link in there to that specific episode that I think would be really helpful, maybe even before you listen to this one. If you want to pause this and go back and listen to that, that might be even more helpful. But anyway, I am so thankful for your time and attention, and I appreciate your friendship. Thanks for joining me in Sheffy's Sandbox. I'm April D. Scheffler, and I invite you to play with me and my guest today, Joanne Rodriguez. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
In this segment, it's called Let's Grab a Drink. We pop into a virtual coffee house before hitting the beach. And being the benevolent host that I am, your order's on me. So what order do you give the barista?
Grande toffee nut latte.
Now that you have your refreshing beverage, let's dive right in. This segment I have just renamed. I had an interesting conversation with my previous guest, and because of that, I'm renaming this segment to I think I know you from somewhere. So sometimes living one's purpose and going through the human experience can look like playing big, and other times it can look like playing small. But in your spotlight moments, have there been any claims to fame, times that our listeners may have seen you or your work? So for example, have you ever streaked across the field at a World Cup match?
No.
That kind of stuff.
No, nothing like that. No, not even close. No.
Have you ever been in an extra in a movie or been interviewed on the news, or I don't know?
I've been interviewed on the news. Guy asked me what it was for, and it was probably promoting the nonprofit, most likely. It was so long ago, I don't remember what I was on there for. I used to own a collection agency, so that's where a lot of people that run into me they remember me from.
From you calling them and saying, hey, where's the money?
Well, I owned it, so it was more employees remembering who I am, not the people I call.
Did you actually have to make any of those phone calls yourself?
I did. It was fun.
Was it?
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay, I think I want to hear more about this because that seems like one of the worst jobs is trying to collect money. What made
it
it
just
fun?
depends on how you handle it. I mean, some people are argumentative. I wasn't. I was more trying to help them get it resolved because it wasn't going to go away. I kind of went the nice route. I didn't go the mean route.
And that worked better.
Yeah, for me it did.
All right, in this segment, it's called Linguistic Tag. Guests are asked to choose a word or phrase that they would like to hear used more often in everyday conversation, something that doesn't get enough play or enough airtime. And the prior guest chose symbiosis or symbiotic. So you are tasked to try to somehow fit that word into our conversation today. Now, you also get to choose a word for the next guest to dance with. And it could be a peculiar word that you find funny or something that just resonates with you. So what are you laying down for them to pick up?
Fervent.
And what is your attachment to that word? Why do you like it?
It represents like passion. So that is one of the things that I have on, I can even show it to you, one of the plaques that our highest donors got this year. Thank you for their fervent service in helping our kids. So yeah, that would be my word.
You are here as a representative of the, founder and a representative of the nonprofit Sunshine Thru the Rain. And if it's okay, as an introduction, I'm just going to read what it says on your website about it.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's perfect. Sunshine Thru the Rain is dedicated to helping children that have lost one or both of their parents by providing a safe environment for them to express and share their experiences and make new memories. We are an organization that provides the platform that most people need and look for when going through the grief process. They look for others that have suffered a similar situation. They look for others that will understand the capacity of pain they feel. They look for friends that won't see them as damaged. And they look for someone that can just simply relate to the fact that someone they cared for so much is no longer here. When looking in their immediate circle, most won't find what they're looking for. That's where we step in and provide the environment for the process to naturally take place. With us, they will know that no matter how bad the rain gets, the sun will eventually shine through. Usually I will say like how me and the guest know each other. And that's also pretty much basically laid out on the website.
Yes.
Is that okay if I read the family
Absolutely,
story?
go ahead.
And I looked over it and I was like, oh gosh, this may be a little difficult to read.
Yeah.
Okay. The hardest day in my life came June of last year. My ex-husband lost his battle with mental illness and committed suicide to end the pain. I was faced with the task of telling my 5-year-old daughter that her daddy was gone. She was old enough to fully understand and asked for all the details I knew at the time. I will never forget her heart-rending wail when she was finally sure I was telling her the truth and not some horrible joke. Her dad had watched TV constantly as an escape mechanism from his anxiety and depression. I didn't want her to vegetate in front of an electronic device even more than before, feeling detached and alone. So in addition to the ballet she was doing, I signed her up for karate and Girl Scouts. As you can imagine, the little girl has had a busy calendar. Sure, she was socializing, but there was still one component missing. She didn't know any other kids like herself who had lost a parent. None of her peers could really empathize or understand. In that way, she was still very much different, set apart, alone in her pain. Her daddy wasn't there for her first day of kindergarten, or when she had the father-daughter dance at ballet, or donuts with dad at school, or when she earned 2 belts in karate. My second husband does a fantastic job of being stepdad, but even he knows that he can never replace her daddy. The grief counselor told me that grieving is different for adults than it is for children. My daughter will grieve and process anew this loss at each developmental stage ahead of her. So as I was looking into bereavement and grief camps for her this summer, I came across Sunshine Through the Rain and emailed Joanne. It's not counseling or talk therapy, just kids having fun with other kids, but kids like them. My daughter and I joined them at last month's outing for the first time, and I thought it was great. This was the missing piece for which I had been looking. She's not alone. Other kids have lost parents as well, and it's okay to laugh or cry and carry the memory of your loved one with you in your heart as you carry on. This June marks the 1-year anniversary of her dad's death. Since then, she has started kindergarten, been displaced due to Hurricane Harvey, lost an aunt, and the list goes on. A lot of changes and adjustments. However, I want to thank Sunshine Through the Rain for being available to children like my own. They meet a special need. Our first meeting with the group was a gentle introduction. Nothing earth-shattering, but she made a few acquaintances with some girls and knows they are in the same boat as her. And I'm looking forward to joining even more events in the future. I think in cases of early bereavement, it's especially true, it takes a village to raise a child. I want my daughter to have a happy and healthy life, despite whatever the stupid statistics may say. Last year was, there wasn't a lot going on because of COVID.
Right. Last year, everything got canceled.
Mhm.
Every single event got canceled last year. There was not one until they ended up canceling Shop with a Cop. It was canceled because of COVID. So when that happened, I was like, this is their favorite event. It's the best one. It's the best one of the year. So I was like, we're not canceling. So I just kind of band-aided everything together, and it came out really good. I think it came out really good.
Yeah, so tell our listeners about Shop with a Cop.
Okay, so Shop with a Cop is an event that we have at Walmart. Normally, Walmart funds the event and gives each one of our kids, or at least 20 of our kids, a $200 shopping spree with an officer. So the officer takes them shopping. They get to shop up to $200, and then they get their gifts wrapped and take them home. This year they did cancel it, like I said. So we ended up talking to a manager over on a different Walmart. She said, absolutely, you can have it here. But their funds had already been depleted for the year. It was already October. It was the end of October when we found out. And the funds had been depleted. So we had to like immediately start fundraising for it. And then we band-aided the officers because it was in Fulshire, and the Fulshire officers, we were only able to get 2, and we needed about 15. So we had an HPD officer, we had Fort Bend as well. But yeah, there was a lot of help this year, a lot of help to put that together.
Life can be hard for kids for a multitude of reasons.
Yes.
So why this particular population? of, you know, kids that have lost one or more, one or both parents to death.
Okay. So what's the reason I started it is what you're asking me.
Let's go
Why
into
does
that.
it mean, okay. So this one it is a tough question. I started it because my sister passed away. My sister passed away and left 4 kids. At the time that she passed away, they were 10, 9, 4, and 3. And my goal wasn't to start a nonprofit. My goal was to find a nonprofit that did basically what we do. And there wasn't one. The only thing that we could find was counseling. And counseling's great. Counseling's great. But they need more, I think. I mean, when you're 9 and 10 years old, what are the odds that you're going to know another child that has lost a parent? And even if they do, they're not walking around going, hey, look, this happened to me. Did it happen to you too? So it's hard to find those people. So I needed them to know that it didn't only happen to them. There are a lot of other kids that it happened to. So when they think it only happens to them, they start thinking, what did I do? What if I would have did this? And they start playing the what if game. What if I wouldn't have done this? And what if I wouldn't have done that? What if I would have did this instead? And they start playing that game, and it goes into a spiral to where they just start getting depressed, and it's hard to get them out of that unless they have counseling. But when you put other kids that have gone through a similar situation, and then on top of that, you put them in a fun environment where they can run and they can play and they know it's okay. Like one of my nieces, for like 2 years, she didn't want to laugh. She didn't want to smile. She didn't want to any of that. And it was hard to get her to laugh or smile until one day I just asked her why. And she's like, well, if mom can't smile, I can't either. So putting them out there with other kids, she ended up running around playing, and they were at a playground, and you know, they don't even realize that they're having fun until later. And then they realize it's okay. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to play, you know? So that's why I do it.
Was this your younger sister, or?
It was my younger sister. Mm-hmm. Blood clots, just from one day to the next. Her body just decided to start making blood clots and wouldn't stop. So yeah, it was difficult. She fought it for a year. And to tell the whole story, one day she had a pain in her foot, and she just thought it was pain in her foot. And then the next day it was a pain in her knee. It wasn't a pain in her foot anymore. It was pain in her knee. And she was like, that's weird. My knee hurts now. And then the next day, she woke up in the middle of the night, and it was hard for her to breathe. And she woke her husband up, and she's like, it's hard to breathe. I'm going to go to the doctor in the morning. So there was like, okay. So she waited till the morning, went to the doctor, and they did, I don't know if it was an x-ray or what they did, but she had a blood clot in her lung. So they rushed her to the emergency room, and it just went from there. It was horrible.
Tell us how the ladybug plays into this.
You're gonna make me cry. You're trying to make me cry. Okay, so the ladybug. She was already sick. She was on oxygen. She couldn't, if she walked 4 steps, she'd have to stop for 20-30 minutes to catch her breath, and then she'd take another 4 steps and stop 20 or 30 minutes to catch her breath. So one day she was on the couch at home. She had her oxygen on, and there was a ladybug that was in her house. The kids were playing upstairs, and every time it came around her, she would scream, you know. And then, I mean, it probably 30 minutes of her going through that. Then one of the girls came down, and they were like, "What's wrong? What's happening?" You know. And she's like, there's a ladybug. So my niece just grabs it. She's like, ah, she grabs it and puts it outside and lets it go. So then me and my older sister wouldn't we ended up buying her little trinkets, little pillow pets, and all kinds of little stupid ladybug things. And she's like, this is going to be a thing, isn't it? You know, it was just funny to us. So we were making fun of her by getting her the little things. And then when it came to, ooh, you're going to make me cry. When it came to when she was passing away, she said that she was going to find a way to let us know that she's okay. So be on the lookout for ladybugs. And as crazy as it sounds, constant ladybugs when she passed away. It was crazy. Like my son, her and my son used to, they were each other's favorites, you know? And I mean, he just got inundated with ladybugs all the time. Inside, outside, didn't matter where. It was definitely crazy.
How does the idea of, something that's in your head, like you're looking for something, you're not finding it, and you're realizing that if you want this support system for your nieces, then you're gonna have to be the one that makes it happen, to make it materialize. So how does a nonprofit get birthed? Like, how does that come into being?
At the time, I had a lot of resources that I could use. So in order for Sunshine Through the Rain to exist, it actually had to happen at the time that it happened. Because I had an attorney on payroll, I had everything that I needed. So it wasn't even that much of a thought, to be honest with you. It was just, okay, well, this needs to be done, so let's do it. So go, I just told him, and he's like, okay, well, I'll go and create it. So it's like, okay. So it took 8 months to come up with the name. It just wasn't, oh, okay, I have the name. No, it was, we need to come up with a name. And everybody wanted me to call it Julie's Foundation. Julie is my sister. And I was like, but that's not it. I would know once I heard it. I'm like, once I hear it, I'll know that's it. 8 months later, was sound asleep, I woke up with it. And I was like, oh, I need to write this down because it's perfect. It was the perfect name. But it was 8 months later that the name came about. And it makes sense.
So what were some things that you wish you had known then that you know now that you're several years into this?
Well, how much work it is, I'm glad I didn't know then. I'm glad I didn't know that then. But all the work is definitely worth it. It's worth it. It is difficult because when I owned my companies, the companies depended on me, on how hard I worked. So as long as I worked hard, it was a successful company. On the nonprofit, I can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It depends on other people. And these people have to trust you because they're giving you their money. And they have to trust that what you're doing with the money is what you're saying that you're doing with the money. So that building those friendships and those relationships is what is very time consuming.
So you have a board of directors, right?
Yes.
And did you have that to begin with?
Well, no. Honestly, it was a thought in my head that just was like, okay, this needs to be done, so go start it. And when you start it, you're supposed to have a board. So the board can basically be anybody. So some of them were my neighbors, cousins, you know, friends, stuff like that. But as time went on, you kind of figure or find out who's really wants to be a part of it and who just wanted to be able to put it on their resume.
So what does the board actually do? Have you been able to delegate a lot of what you were putting on yourself? Have you been able to delegate that to make that a lot easier?
Yes. It's refreshing, to be honest with you. But I think I needed to go through what I went through to understand how hard and how much work it is to run. So now it's refreshing to have somebody else say, "Oh, I can do that. I'll do this and I'll do that. I'll take care of this for you." And it's odd. Well, I don't know the word. Not really odd. It's just refreshing. It just takes so much pressure off of you that used to be there and that you're used to. So you're used to that pressure. So once it goes away, it feels weird. Good weird, but weird.
So, Sunshine Through the Rain, I guess we didn't mention this, but I think the goal was to have at least one social gathering for the kids once a month, right? That's the generally the plan, right?
Yes. So January, I usually try to, January is the month where I sit down and I try to plan out the year. And then it also lets me rest because October, November, and December are ridiculously crazy for me. Ridiculously crazy. I'm going from 5 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning. So very little sleep.
Yeah, because of your job or the nonprofit or both?
Both.
Combined with both. Christmas and all of your personal life.
Right. Because I work. The nonprofit doesn't pay me yet. Mm-hmm. We're not there yet. So all the money does go to the outings and of course, I mean, there are expensive, the website, the email addresses, the just basic expenses that come with it. But yeah, it's both. It was the nonprofit and work, because I work from 9 to 6, sometimes 7. So I get up in the morning. I try to network. There's some networking meetings that are in the morning, and then I go to work, and then after work you go network, and then once I get home, it's mainly answering emails, just researching, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. But October, November, and December are, you know, we do the gift wrapping fundraiser at Katie Mills every year. So I have to get that settled. I have to have volunteers because I work. I can't be there, you know, the whole time now, because I used to be there open to close every day for the 2 weeks. And I can't do that now. So I have to have volunteers. So getting everybody to volunteer and then having their schedules and then figuring all that out at the same time, getting Shop with the Cop handled and squared away. I mean, it's a lot.
So January is kind of like a break to
January is definitely my catch up on sleep, and plan out the year, because there's really no other time that I have time to do it. So if I just scratch out January to where there's no outing or anything like that for January, then I'm able to plan out the rest of the year. And there's a lot of changes that are coming this year, so we're trying to get that situated as well.
Like what? What kind of changes? What do we have to look forward to?
Well, it'll probably still be in December. I mean, in February. It's going to be a smooth transition. It isn't going to be an automatic But before, the surviving parent or the guardian needed to come with the child. And what I've noticed, which I'm sure you have noticed as well, when they have their parent or guardian there, they don't really go and socialize a lot with the other kids. They just know that everybody there has gone through a similar situation, but their safety is there, their person. So what we're trying to do this year is make it to where the kids get dropped off and we have them, and then they can come be picked up afterwards. I mean, we'll have them for a few hours, so it's going to be longer outings this year. It's not going to be, just the 1 or the 2 hours, because we want them to get to know the other kids and create those friendships and stuff like that, because the other kids are going to be able to help. They're going to be able to help each other, just from talking. And the same thing with the parents too. So we'll work the parents in on some of them, on some of the outings, but most of the outings I do want the kids dropped off. And I think we'll have a lot more participation that way. Because
I can see that. Yeah, for sure.
Because a lot of the times the adults have other plans, or they work, or it just isn't something that they're thinking that they want to do. They don't want to sit there and wait for the kids to go and play laser tag, or they don't want to be, they don't want to go.
That was a long wait.
Oh my God.
The laser tag day.
So much fun. They had so much fun. All the kids were like, this is the best outing.
Yeah. And that was like, when can we come back?
They loved it. But see, that's the thing. So if we have a parent that did go to one of the outings and then all they did was sit there and they didn't want to be a part of it, and all they were doing was waiting, it's going to be harder to get that child back out, because the parent isn't going to want to sit there for 2 or 3 hours waiting.
Hello again. This is Nonsense with Natalie, Season 2, Episode 3. So I don't want to do those random silly jokes or riddles, even though jokes and riddles are very silly. I wanted to talk about Sunshine Through the Rain.
What has been one of your favorite activities with Sunshine Through the Rain?
I would say you hated it because you've been with me, but it was Blessington Farm, the rat cages. The rat cages.
The rat cages?
Uh-huh.
What do you mean the rat cages?
Remember we tried to go back and forth in the little tire?
Oh, yeah, those little tumblers. Yeah, that you had to act like a hamster in a wheel and try to make it move.
You did horribly.
That was pretty bad.
But at the end, I did get a hang of it.
I was embarrassing myself.
Same.
Okay, what do you like most about Sunshine Through the Rain?
I like that it is an organization where people, kids or even teenagers have lost their parents. And even our motto is to mend the brokenhearted. So I like that. I really like that part.
Okay, is there anything that you would want to say to Joanne?
Thank you for doing this organization, and thank you.
So, your youngest niece, how old is she now?
She is 10, fixing to be 11.
Okay. I was just wondering if you have an idea yet as to when you might want to step back, or if you already have like a knowing or a feeling that this is going to be like a long-term project, like you're in this for forever, or do you feel like you just want to get eventually to the point where it's self-sustaining and you can step back and have someone else? No. Is this your baby? Is this?
Yes. Okay. I always say I was picked to do this. I didn't pick this. This picked me. This isn't the person that I was before. Just there, no.
That makes me curious. Like, okay, so who was Joanne before?
Well, I mean, I was a lot. Seeing me cry, nobody would see me cry. I mean, I just wouldn't. It just wasn't me. I was harder. I was a lot harder. But I was also a business owner. I mean, we owned a collection agency. So, I mean, it was just do this, do this, do this. You know, it wasn't, I was just, the easiest way to say it is I was a lot harder, you know. Once my sister passed away, I mean, again, before nobody saw me cry. I mean, maybe my kids every once in a blue moon, you know, it wasn't like it is now. And once my sister passed away, it was crying like all the time. It's crazy. I mean, I already cried here, you know, when I was talking about the ladybug. No, I mean, again, my goal wasn't to start a nonprofit. It was to help my nieces and my nephew to get into something that would help them, you know, go through the process. And honestly, as long as it's taken for us to get to where we are, it probably isn't my nieces and my nephew that are going to benefit from everything that we're going to end up having to offer. It's just a slow process. But helping other kids and seeing what Sunshine Through the Rain does for them, it helps me. So it's kind of a little bit selfish, you know, but it does. It helps me with my sister's death, as crazy as that sounds.
No, it doesn't sound crazy at all. I'm sure through the years you have been surprised maybe as to what you thought would work and motivate people and raise money and didn't, and then what you might not have thought would work and ended up really taking off. Have you had any examples of that?
Well, yeah. Raising money is hard. And I didn't think that was going to be hard. I thought that was going to be the easy part. And at the very beginning of Sunshine Through the Rain, I wasn't really concerned about the money because, I mean, if we raised it, great. If we didn't, I paid for it. It wasn't, I had it at the time to where I could pay for it. So it wasn't a big deal. It didn't matter to me whether we raised it or if we didn't. But once it got to a point to where now it matters because I can't pay for everything. We're bigger. We have a lot more kids. And we're growing almost by the day. Yes, I love when we get new members, but at the same time, we get new members because something horrible happened to them, you know? So it's like, yay. And then, oh no, that's not good, but I'm glad that we are here for them. I know I just totally changed the subject. We did kind of like the ice bucket challenge. We tried something similar to that where they would jump in the pool. It was either, God, this was, and it did where literally 2 people did it. And I had shirts made. I had a website for it, the link to it, and all this, and 2 people did it. So yeah, I thought that would take off because it was fun, and it didn't. I learned not to do that again. Basically, it's hard to get something to take off like that. It's not as easy as you would think. So our best way of or form of getting money in is through the business relationships that I've made. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how Shop with a Cop was funded, because from the day that they told me that it was canceled, it was the end of October, and I'm like, how are we going to get all of this in a month, basically? I needed it for December 13th. And we needed minimum, just minimum would have been 4,500 is what we needed. And we had zero. So, just talking to people. And honestly, it was one person that came into the office where I work, and I just mentioned it to him, and he was like, and how much do you need? And I told him. He started sending messages to people. By the time he had left the office, he already had promises for $2,200. And by the time I left the office at the end of the day, he had promises for about $3,400. So within 2 weeks, I think we collected what we needed. And then the rest of the time was extra.
Yeah, I know Natalie was asked by, I think it was her grandma, something about, what's Santa bringing you for Christmas? And she was like, Santa's a cop. She didn't need Santa Claus because she had a cop.
Like one of the kids, she's 5 years old or 6 years old. The only time she ever sees me is with Sunshine Through the Rain. So I had her aunt bring her to the chiropractor's office, because he's also a holistic doctor, so he does other things besides just cracking. So the issue that she was having, I told her to bring her to the doctor's office. So, but she didn't tell the little girl. She didn't tell her that I'm there, So when the little girl saw me, her face just lit up. She was just like, and she didn't say anything. But when she went home to her cousin, she's like, I think Santa has his elves working because Miss Joanne was at the doctor's office.
Oh gosh.
It was hilarious. But Shop at the Cop has a lot of benefits, because it's the time that the kids have with the officers shopping, it gives them a new respect for officers. The best story this year from that was one of the kids. She was 8 years old. They're new to the group. Their dad had literally just passed away the week before, and the first person that she saw was an officer, and he scared her. So she was terrified when her mom told her that she was going to go shop with an officer. She was terrified. So they sat in the Walmart parking lot, and she was screaming, begging her mom, please, I don't want to go. Once they came inside, she's holding on to her mom. She's shaking. She's crying. And then her mom told me, what her fear was. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to send her with an officer. She's terrified of him.
Where was the fear coming from? Just
their dad had literally just passed away the week before, the Sunday. We were there on the Sunday. The Sunday before that, they lost their dad. And the first person that she saw, I don't know the extent of it. I don't know if he was extremely direct in what he said to them. I don't know if he was emotionless.
So after her husband, after her dad's passing, the first person they saw was an officer?
Was the officer,
okay,
right.
Okay, so that's what kind of primed her to be really afraid of policemen. Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
So when she's there and she's crying, I'm like, well, I'm not going to send her with an officer if she's terrified of them. So one of us took her shopping instead of an officer. And I want to say an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours in, the little girl comes up to me and she's like, I'm not scared of officers anymore. I forgot the officer's name, but it was the dog.
Mm-hmm. The little mascot. Yeah.
Yes. She was ended up requesting pictures with the officers. She was going around hugging the officers. So, it completely just changed her. Yeah. That was a good day. The pictures and the videos and stuff just don't, it doesn't do the day justice, from being there and feeling it and hearing all the stories. I know you were gift wrapping most of the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, the 6-year-old, that, remember I just said they were the new kids. The dad had just passed away the week before. She had asked the officer if it was okay for her to wear the shoes that she was buying so she could break them in for her dad's funeral. So I'm like, I lost it. I just completely lost it. I had to walk outside. That was just too much for me, you know. I mean, it's just, or we know all the stuff that they're fixing to go through, all the emotions, how long it takes and stuff like that. And of course, everybody has different stories, but the same, you know. It's different, but it's the same.
I know there have to be a lot of people who have a great idea that they want to turn into a nonprofit. Do you have any suggestions for them?
Do a lot of research. There was a lot of times that the nonprofit should have gone away. It should have gone away. I can't stress enough that I didn't pick this, it picked me. I was definitely picked for this position. I definitely didn't pick it. It's hard, it's difficult. It's hard to stick to it, no matter how passionate you are about it, because it's a ton of work. It's exhausting, but if it feels like work, then it wasn't meant for you. If it doesn't feel like work, then you can keep going. And that's the main reason that it's still here, is because it doesn't feel like work to me. In 2017, the nonprofit should have gone away. It should have, because I had lost 2 people at the beginning of the year that just basically took me down. I mean, just emotionally and just mentally, it just took me. And I was like, I can't do this.
So when you say you lost 2 people to death?
They died.
They died.
They died. And the entire year, the nonprofit hadn't done anything. There weren't any outings. We didn't get any new emails. Nothing. There was no activity in 2017 at all. Nothing. There was no money coming in. There was nothing. No outings happened. We weren't getting any emails for new people. So no one was looking for a nonprofit that did what we did or anything like that. So I had already scheduled for everything to be shut down. Website to go down, emails to go down, everything. And 3 days before it was scheduled to go down, I get an email. One, the entire year. And it happens 3 days before it's supposed to be shut down. That the mom had passed away. They wanted to know if I could go and talk to the 3 kids. And I couldn't say, well, you know, it's fixing to go away. I couldn't do that. So I was like, of course I'll go. And they were in Spring. And I'm in Katy. So that was a drive. And went in there. I probably stayed there 2 or 3 hours, talked to the kids. At the end, I was talking to the dad. And when I left, I was just like, this is just what I'm supposed to do. It was good. I mean, it was like, it's work, but it doesn't feel like work. You know, it's just what I'm supposed to do. So because of that, everything, I got everything back up to date, brought everything back up, said I was going to stop everything else that I was doing that was taking up my time, and 100% was going to go to the nonprofit. So 2018, that's why 2018 was such a good year, because I started networking. I didn't know anything about networking before 2018, nothing. And by the end of that year, I was on the committee of one of the networking groups. I mean, it was just, it just kind of blew up, and the nonprofit did great. It did great. It was just going to go away. Thank goodness it didn't. It wasn't meant to go away. It just, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And it wasn't meant to go away. It's supposed to be here.
So when someone has researched all the ins and outs of how to set up a nonprofit, and they are secure in the fact that it's their mission, and it doesn't feel, even though they are committed to the work, they know it's not going to feel like work because it's fulfilling them at the same time. How do they know when they're ready to actually, that they know all that they need to know?
You
How do
don't.
they know?
You'll never know everything you need to know. You'll never know everything you need to know. I mean, when I first, when I sent the attorney to go make the company, he said, hey, you need a 501(c)(3). And I'm like, what's that? I didn't even know what that was, you know, but in order to operate as a nonprofit, you have to have a 501(c)(3) in order for people to put their donations as a tax write-off. So yeah, that was the, you know, you just kind of learn as you go, or you can go to school for it. I would suggest going to school for it and not learning as you go, because learning as you go is hard. But again, if I would have known all the work when I first started it that I was going to have to do, I don't know if I would have started it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I went to school for it, it might have been easier because I would have known all the stuff, you know?
So when you say go to school for it, what kind of a program or certificate?
You can go to school for grant writing. Again, it would make it a lot easier, I would think, just because you would know all the stuff that's coming. But I'm not the school type, and I have no time, so I have to learn on the go.
I'm more on your end of the spectrum because I enjoy a certain amount of preparation and all that stuff, but at the same time, I just want to get in there. Like if it's taking too long,
yes,
I just want to get in there and like learn what I don't know and what I do know, and just kind of go from there.
Figure it out.
And figure it out along the way. But the more prepared you are, or the more knowledgeable people you have on your team who have bought into your vision, the better.
The more helpful it is. Yes. There was a couple of nonprofits where, and it's rare. It's rare to find a nonprofit and still find the founder. It's usually just where it just evolves and the founder kind of goes away. So it's rare to find a nonprofit that still has the founder. So I've been blessed enough to be able to talk to a couple of founders that have helped me along the way.
Like mentors for you? Right.
Actually, only one actually helped me. The other one was more, I had to learn the hard way. So, you know, you do too. But I mean, that's okay. Because I mean, it's a lot. But I mean, if you have somebody that can just give you tips, you know, here and there, and I mean, you don't always have to take them, but that one of the tips that I had gotten was about the board, and it inadvertently ended up getting me to where most of the board had left. Remember, I said it was mostly neighbors and, you know, friends and family and stuff like that. Wasn't a lot of help. They would go to the meetings and we'd have the sit down conversation and we'd brainstorm a lot. But it was mainly me that was doing all the work. And then talking to one of the founders that actually was helping me, she said one of the things that the board needs to do is, because they believe in your cause and stuff like that, is donate to the cause as well. She did is she had her board, they needed to either raise $1,000 or donate $1,000. Raising $1,000 really, I mean, it's not that hard. It's not that difficult, you know? So I brought it to my board at the time, and most of them went away. They're like, can't believe you're doing this, and, you know, stuff like that. And It's like, but we're fixing to have a fundraiser, just raise $1,000. But no, they wouldn't, because they weren't planning on being at the fundraiser or helping with the fundraiser. They're just, I guess, I don't know what they were doing, to be honest. I think it was more for my satisfaction that I had a board that I could run ideas past.
I see.
So
by doing that,
isn't really a board.
So that by doing that minimum of $1,000 donation or fundraising, they feel a lot more invested as well, I'm sure.
Right. But I mean, if you're going to become a board member or a committee member of a nonprofit, the nonprofit should mean a lot to you to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to donate some of your time to help it and help it grow to where, it needs to be, then you need to be committed. And again, the people that I had weren't, but I can't be mad at them. I'm not mad at them, because it's my vision. It wasn't their vision. They were just trying to help me the best that they could. And they wanted,
and sometimes that takes time to find the people that are supposed to be on your team, and so they were
it's taken me a long time.
They were these important placeholders, I guess.
Right. It's taken a long time to find the people, one, with the extra time, two, that believe in the cause, and three, that will listen to what you have in your, because I have it all in my head. I don't have any of it written down. I have it in my head, and all I do is explain, this is what I want. And then they start raising their hands. Okay, well, I can do this and I can do that. And I have somebody that can do this, and it just takes so much pressure off. It's so refreshing.
I think we've kind of already touched on this before, but what would you like to see Sunshine Through the Rain become? Like, what is your vision? Maybe you feel like you've already reached a lot of it, but what would your golden dream for Sunshine Through the Rain?
Okay, so we haven't even touched on our goal. We haven't even, there's so much. One, I want it to be national, because it's not just in Texas where people lose their parents. It's definitely everywhere. So I want it to be national. I want a facility where they can go, and I want like a campsite where we can have bonfires and, counselors out there. I want them to, like, if they're interested, like, I don't know if Natalie's in dance. I think she is, correct? She's in ballet and dance and stuff like that. So I want to be able to have sectioned off. I want like a dance teacher where our kids get taught for free, but they can have outside students come in that do pay them, but their rent is free. They get the facility for free. I want the dance teacher. I want a boxing class. I want guitar lessons. I want gymnastic classes, just anything, woodworking, just to give them purpose. Some parents can't afford to send the kids. Some people don't want to send the kids. Some people are still grieving and they don't know how to help the kids.
Like with the woodworking and maybe with like car repair and stuff like that, depending on what parent was lost, sometimes that parent, what goes with them is all of that knowledge that was contained in them. And so if you don't have someone teaching you how to change the oil in your car, or how to change a tire, or how to do some basic sewing, whatever it is that, that parent could have taught you, I can see how that would be a really, really cool thing for the center.
I want farming. I want, all of it. Just, it's kind of like the outings now, when we would take the symphony, when y'all went to the symphony, we went to the symphony with some of the kids as one of the outings. And most of the kids hated it. But there was the one where he was like, I could see the movie happening, you know, just from the music. He could see the movie in his head, you know, and he was so excited and he loved it. And it was one of the kids that you would have thought would have just hated being there, you know, and he loved it. So it's okay that all the other kids hated it. It's not for them, but it was for him. And he might end up being, you know, somebody that ends up studying that and goes into that. You don't know. You don't know what changes somebody's thought process, you know. But if he would have never gone to the symphony, then he wouldn't know. So that's kind of what my goal is, to have all those things to be taught, and they get to kind of put the feel in, you know. I mean, if you never try dance, how do you know you don't like it? But a lot of the parents and guardians will ask the kids if that's what they want to do. And 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be no. But how do they know the answer is no? Unless you take them and you let them try it, then they don't know that they don't like it. I mean,
Unless
they
they're
don't
my
know.
kid who wants to try everything.
No, that's
at least
good.
once.
That's good though. Because a lot of the kids, most of their answers is no, especially the older they get. When they lose somebody, the older they get, if you ask them, do you want to go to the movies? No. Do you want to go to the store? No. Do you want to do this? No. Their answer is always going to be no. Don't ask. Just, you're the parent. Take them. Just take them.
It has reinforced what I had heard, that at every stage of development, they're going to process it in a different way. And so now that she's 9, she's processing it on a more mental level, as opposed to when it happened when she was 5. You know, so she is having to, at least I knew that going into this, so that I wasn't like, okay, we're out of the woods. You know, she's dealt with it once, you know, we're done. No, it's going to, you know, it's going to keep coming up in different reiterations. It's just going to be
forever
looking different. Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. That's her dad.
Mm-hmm.
You don't forget that you have one just because you get older, you know? So yeah, it's forever. It's not something that, I mean, even adults that lose their mom or their dad at a later age, you know, they can be 40 years old and they go through it, you know.
I was thinking about this before, leading up to this conversation. There was a woman I had worked with, and she was probably in her 50s, late 50s, when she lost her last remaining parent. And she's like, I'm an orphan. And she has a good relationship with the coworkers. And one of the coworkers was like, hush, you know, you're not a child. And she's just like, it doesn't matter, you know. Definition of an orphan is, you know, both parents are dead. She's like, I'm now an orphan. And she kind of said that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but not really. I mean, there was still definitely a loss there. That you're right. I mean, it doesn't just affect kids. So
no, it doesn't just affect kids. But it affects kids in a different way, because that's their everyday. And okay, so there was one time where we did have a table set up at Life Gift. So Life Gift is where the deceased donate their organs. And then the family ends up, the Life Gifts gives the family a ceremony and gives them like a little medal with flowers and stuff like that. So I had a table set up there, and at the end they come out, you know, and kind of go around, see who's there and stuff like that. And there was this one family where it was the mom and the little girl, because I have pictures of what we do and stuff like that, you know, the outings, and the little girl she was like, oh, Mom, look, this would be fun. And you could tell the mom had been crying in the ceremony, because it's a moving ceremony. I mean, you can't not cry when you're in there. And I think she was upset that the little girl wasn't crying. She was more upset that she wasn't hurting. And I'm like, if she was hurting, you would be trying to take that hurt away. You would want her to be happy, and you would want her to be okay. But because she wasn't hurting, she wanted her to hurt. So she was more upset that she was looking at our group, and it was fun stuff, for the kids, that she was upset with the little girl that she wasn't hurt. And I wanted to take her to the side and go and talk to her, but it just wasn't the time. It wasn't the time or the place for that, because just because the little girl wasn't hurting at that moment doesn't mean that at 6 o'clock, when the dad's supposed to walk through the door and she doesn't hurt. Mm-hmm. At that moment, her life was the same. So it wasn't different. It was normal for the dad not to be there at that time. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just important to acknowledge, first of all, people grieve differently and at different mm-hmm. times. And there's no, I wanted to almost say pissing contest as to, who's hurting more, or,
right,
who loved this
right.
more. Everyone's relationship, it could be the same person. You've lost the same person, but that relationship is different between every single person. So it's going to be have a different flavor. There's going to be a different dynamic missing. And so my grief over that, over having lost my ex-husband, married to him for 13 years, was going to be a lot different than my 5-year-old's, experience of losing her dad. And so I think it's important to both honor what your own grief is and support everyone else, whether or not at that moment they're feeling what you think they should be feeling. There's a lot of shoulds, that go on. I'm going to be linking in the show notes a podcast episode that I heard that I did not realize I was going to need for myself. It was about children having lost a parent. And so I had heard it on NPR or something like that. And again, this was before 2017. So I had no idea that I was going to personally need this information. Mm-hmm. But mm-hmm. it came into play. And one of the important things is whatever the child wants to know, you need to tell them, because we have this inborn mechanism that we want to protect them and shield them from the pain. Mm-hmm. And but what that does, if we kind of shy away from the truth or not tell them exactly what it is that they're wanting to know, that uncertainty breeds them questioning themselves. And that speaks to what you were saying earlier in our conversation about kids, if they're not with other kids, they start to think, maybe it was my fault. Mm-hmm. And so that's what this podcast had said, is that if you kind of just try to say, oh, someone's in heaven now, and not tell them exactly what they are ready to know, then they're going to fill in the blank with them mm-hmm. being the problem. Okay, mm-hmm. well, it was mm-hmm. me. I did this somehow. And so when my ex-husband committed suicide, I think a lot of people were shocked that I told my daughter the details. And that's because she wanted to know. And if she hadn't have asked questions, I wouldn't have, felt like I had to tell her the stuff. Mm-hmm. But she was at a place where she needed to know. And so I had told her, in this conversation, wow, this is difficult. I told her that, oh God. Anyway, she asked, did you see him? How did you know? And I'm like, no, I didn't know. I heard it from this person. And then she had to like trace it back. Well, how did they know? Did they see him, dead? And so she was smart enough where she had me trace it all the way to the police officer who found him. And so it was then that she was like, wow, this is, it's not some game. This is true. And whenever she would ask about, how he did it, and she asked very specific questions. And because I was prepped with this NPR episode with experts in child trauma and all that stuff, if they're asking, they need to know. And so I told her all that stuff. And I think I am trusting that because I have been open with her about his mental illness and things like that, and been open with her as to accepting her feelings and not telling her what she should feel. Oh, don't feel sad.
Purposely not talking about it.
Not sharing what you're thinking about.
Right. And I mean the kids, once they ask you a question, don't try to shut it down. Don't try to shut it down because you're trying to shield them from hurting or from crying or whatever. Crying's okay. They need to cry. They need to let it out somehow.
Well, and sometimes they need to see you cry too.
Right.
Just her seeing how other adults deal with grief in a healthy way is great, because sometimes we have role models, but not for grief, because we've, as a society, been taught to stuff our emotions. We've separated ourselves a whole lot from death, and we don't have a role model in a lot of ways for grief, because we've been told that, don't cry, your loved one is in heaven, or
they're in a better place. So many people had told me that my sister was in a better place, to where it got to the point of, if one more person tells me that, we're selfish people. And that's what I ended up telling people. I'm like, look, I get that she's in a better place, but I'm a selfish person and I'd rather have her here, so that one of the worst things to tell somebody when somebody, and I get it, you don't know what to say. So the first thing that comes out, oh, he's in a better place, they're not in pain anymore, and this and that. And maybe some people do need to hear that, but all I needed was, I'm sorry, your sister's gone.
Yes,
that's it.
Exactly.
That's all I needed.
Yeah.
I didn't need all the stuff that you think needs to be said. It just, I'm sorry, your sister's gone. That would have been fine. Just that.
Right.
Or just sit there and cry with me. Don't say anything. Just cry with me. I'm good with that too, because I know you don't know what to say, and it's okay to not know what to say. Just don't try to, think of what you think is supposed to be said.
You probably do this as well, but when people want to see how they can best help Natalie, I always encourage them to spend time with them, with her, like shower her with experience and time, because that's one of the things you realize from losing your parents so early in life, is that time is not promised. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Natalie has asked me, she's wanted reassurances that I'm going to be there tomorrow, or whatever. And so going back to being realistic and comforting at the same time, like, we never know what's going to happen, but we're sure as heck going to make the most of it, whatever time we do have together. And so she'll worry about losing her Mimi. So I'll like, in those moments, I'll be like, you know what? while you're thinking about her, like if you're thinking about Mimi, call her. Let's call her right now and talk to her, because there's no use trying to have borrowed time from tomorrow, that may not be there, and there's no use like regretting what you didn't do in the past when someone's already gone. So all we have is the now, the present moment. And so if you're thinking about someone loving them, send them a text, call them, make an appointment to spend time with them, because that's what we have. That's the only thing we have control over,
Right.
what we're doing in the moment.
Yeah. Spend time, take pictures, do things. Yeah.
So even though Natalie has a closed Facebook group where I share pictures and stuff like that, and some people will post, it's not it's not a substitute for actually spending time with her and talking with her and that kind of stuff. So I always encourage people to pick her up for ice cream, whatever, make those memories.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the best thing to do. I mean, that's kind of what I was trying to get to before, when you ask the kids if they want to go to the store. I do have a family where that's what they do. They ask the kids, and it had been years where the kids hadn't gone anywhere or done anything. And when I say hadn't gone anywhere, I mean like even to CVS. They hadn't gone to a store. They hadn't gone to anywhere. They went to school and they went to their room, and that was it. Because they were given the opportunity to have the choice, the choice of saying yes or no. So when you're in control of that, and you're not the happiest person in the world, and in your mind playing a video game in my room is going to be funner than going to the store, their answer is going to be no. And they would respect that answer. So there was a time that they had ended up going to the store with another family member, and they were like, wow, look at this and look at that. And we're like, it's CVS. What are you talking about? What's wrong with you? But it's because for 2-3 years, their whole, everything that they were seeing was inside of a school or inside of their room. And that was it.
Oh yeah. So like in that part I read, I was so not wanting her to get locked away, inside her head or inside a bedroom or a video game console, that I wanted her physically, actively engaged with other people.
That's very important.
Physical beings. And so, so I had to put her in Girl Scouts and karate and ballet. And
y'all were busy.
I stay extremely busy. But I have felt like, and I can do that because she's my only child. And so, if I had more than one, I probably wouldn't have the time or energy or resources to be able to afford doing that for more than one child. But, it's just her. And so I can do that. And that's been my goal, is just keeping her active, out of her mind space, and just interacting with people and keeping her heart, open and loving.
I mean, that's even for us, when you lose someone as an adult, if you keep busy, your mind isn't there. But the second that you're in the car driving home by yourself, all you do is think. You just think, and then it hurts, and you cry, and you hurt, So keeping yourself busy is what most of us end up doing for ourselves, and we forget to do that for the kids. They're going through the same thing. And it's hard when you're the grieving parent to take care of grieving children, because you're grieving and you're going through it. So that's where it takes a village. You need other people to come and help you as well. You can't do everything by yourself. And most of us have to.
Yeah, I have been very blessed where I have people who are, especially her Mimi, is willing to like see her so often. And that's really cool, because there was that link before her dad's death. And so this is his mom, that, they were, his mom and Natalie were really close before he passed. And, that's not my mom, it was my ex-mother-in-law.
Mhm.
And so, but I felt like that connection was so important because
Mhm.
upon his death, if I just kept her to myself, then she would have not only lost her dad, she would have lost a grandma too.
Mhm.
And that was really important to her. It was a strong connection. So
It's
I was
good
just
that you
really
did that.
blessed that
It's
she's
good that
staying
you.
in the picture.
Mhm.
And I get time to myself, mini weekends where I can do my podcast or other boring things like Natalie likes to call them. But yeah, just allowing people to help, that can be
Yes.
important. All right, Joanne, how can people find out more about you and follow what you're making in your own sandbox? Sandbox being your field of activity. So whether you make crafts or you have a website or you offer a personal service, or in this context, it would be basically just give us the website for Sunshine Through the Rain.
So it's sunshinethroughtherain.org, and through is spelled THRU.
And you
That
are
was-
also on Facebook as well with that same
Mhm.
name.
Sunshine Through the Rain.
I will put those links as well as your email address in the show notes. I guess besides Sunshine Through the Rain, is there anything else in your sandbox of life that's going on that you're building or creating?
I work a lot. I just work so much.
So no.
If it has to do with a nonprofit, I drop whatever I'm doing and do that. So I do a ton of networking. Networking is important. It's important. And staying in front of people with it is important, because just because you meet somebody one day doesn't mean they're going to remember you in 3 weeks. So that's where the relationships come. You have to be there to create these relationships. So I work a lot, basically, is what it is.
I love how in the Lifestylist podcast, Luke Story ends his pods asking his guests this question. So I'm including it in my podcast. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings in your life that you might share with our audience that they could go research and also learn from?
Influencers and stuff like that. I really don't. I just don't have time to sit and research them myself. I like Grant Cardone. I listen to some of his stuff when I get a chance. I've read a few books on entrepreneurs and stuff like that. If you're going to ask me a specific one, I don't know. So no, I don't have a lot of inspirational stories or things like that I've gotten or been taught from other people. And it's just mainly because I don't have time for it. I wish I did, because it makes you more well-rounded, and it helps you with a lot of stuff that you're going to face. But like I said, most of the time I end up facing it on my own, and it's a surprise.
So life is your teacher.
Yeah. I have 0 time.
Well, Joanne, thank you for making time today and joining me in Sheffy's Sandbox. I'll be seeing you again soon, I'm sure. So much love.
Thank you.